Charlotte, the end of March 2020. The first week of the COVID lockdown. The streets are empty, the stairwells filled with a ringing silence. Inside one apartment in the artsy NoDa district, a 21-year-old woman is hidden away. In the next bedroom, 4 adults carry on as if nothing has happened. They are the ones who invited her over, under the pretense of patching things up. Mary Collins loved anime, sewed her own cosplay costumes, and dreamed of becoming an actress. 8 days will pass before a single person finally raises the alarm, her mother. And that is when the strangest part comes to light. The motive was a simple no. Mary Collins lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. She is 21, recently out of school, just beginning to build her own adult life. She has soft features, a calm gaze, and a habit of smiling before she has even worked out what she is smiling at. Since childhood, Mary has lived with a diagnosis that has a long name, DiGeorge syndrome. Behind that term sits a rare genetic disorder that causes the body to function with noticeable limitations. A weakened immune system, general physical fragility, and in her case, developmental delay. Complex emotions take Mary a moment to read. The hidden motives of others often slip right past her. Her room is full of anime posters, wigs, costumes made of fabric and plastic. Mary is into cosplay and spends hours stitching together pieces to transform into her favorite character. She dreams of trying acting one day, of stepping onto a small stage, of appearing in a short film. The dreams sound a little childlike, but they are the foundation she is building her future on. When she talks about roles, her face lights up, her voice grows louder, and a kind of confidence creeps into it. The main person beside her is her mother. She knows her daughter's diagnosis better than any doctor and understands exactly what to watch for. They call each other several times a day, talking through small things, plans, new episodes of shows. For Mary, her mother is the anchor she can always come back to whenever something feels frightening or confusing. She has only a few friends, a small social circle, and every new person she meets feels like an event. This trait, practical, psychological, emotional, will later become the key to what happens to her. Not because she did anything wrong, but because the people who end up around her will see her trustfulness not as something precious, but as something convenient. They will quickly figure out that a girl like this finds it easier to trust them than to question them. Those people enter her life in the spring. The North Davidson neighborhood in Charlotte, which locals simply call NoDa, is considered the city's arts district. Old factory buildings have been turned into galleries, into small cafes with brightly painted signs, into craft bars. In the evenings, the streets fill with people who love music, tattoos, vinyl records, and long conversations. For Mary, it is the perfect environment. Nobody here is surprised by bright hair, by costumes, or by unusual interests. In this scene, she meets 2 young women. Their names are Lavery and Lavi Pham. They are both 24, a few years older than Mary, and they are already living together as a couple. The friendship looks completely harmless at first. It begins with short meetups, exchanged messages, shared interests, shared laughter at the same jokes. Lavery and Pham are attentive, ask questions, come across as open. Mary gravitates toward them because she has been missing a real circle of her own. And here she is, welcomed straight away, no strings attached. After a while, the couple becomes something more for her than just new acquaintances. They become her people, the kind you can text late at night, share a new costume idea with, vent a small grievance to, ask for advice. Mary pours more into the friendship than she gets back, but she does not notice the imbalance. To her, it finally feels like she has a grown-up, dependable circle. From the outside, the picture looks fine. In photos, everyone is smiling. The messages are full of standard emojis and hearts. But inside the relationship, a quiet pressure is already building, one Mary cannot yet read. Lavery and Pham start testing the boundaries, sounding out how far she will go. Gently, almost in passing. They start asking questions they have no right to ask. And eventually a suggestion is made, after which their warmth will begin to change very fast. It is said quietly, but it changes everything. Lavery and Pham start hinting that they would like Mary closer, not as a friend, but as a third person in their relationship. At first it is a joke that toes the line, then more direct hints. They present it as a natural step for people with open-minded views. They assume Mary will agree easily, soft, trusting, grateful for the attention. Mary's answer is calm but clear. No, it is not for her. She does not want a relationship of that kind, does not want to move from friendship into something else. She puts it the way she knows how, in simple words, without long explanations. To her, this is a normal human right, to say where the line is. For the couple, the rejection lands like a blow. Not a disappointment, not a reason to back off, but a personal insult. In their version of the world, Mary should have said yes. The fact that this fragile young woman, who in their view ought to be glad of any attention, refused them, wounds the pride of both. The tone of the messages changes. What used to be soft notes and jokes turns into short sentences, cold replies, sharp little jabs. Lavery and Pham start talking about Mary differently when she is not in the room. For a while, Mary does not realize how seriously her no has been taken. She tries to smooth things over, writes the way she used to, suggests meeting up. But the couple's hurt feelings quickly turn into irritation, and the irritation hardens into a cold, calculated dislike. Inside Lavery's head, an idea begins to take shape. Not a sudden flare-up, not a fit of anger, but a slow decision. The girl who dared to say no needs to be taught a lesson. And if two people are not enough to do it, others can be brought in. The idea has no concrete form yet, but the movement toward it has already begun. The central figure is Kelly Lavery. According to investigators, it was inside her that the wound from the rejection grew into the most extreme decision. She sets the direction, talks through the options, nudges her partner along. Lavi Pham backs her. She does not push back, does not hold her in check, does not try to steer the conversation somewhere else. Over time, two more people enter the picture. James Salerno, whom everyone calls Jimmy, is a friend of Lavery and Pham's household. A grown man who is part of their domestic circle, who comes by the apartment, stays overnight, shares the everyday space. And the fourth participant, Sarah Deal, also not a teenager, also a fully aware adult woman who knows exactly what is being discussed. All four are part of the same conversation, and not one of them takes any uneasy questions outside the group. They talk through how exactly to deal with Mary. According to the prosecution, the idea does not boil up in an hour, not on an emotional wave. It is not a quick fight after which someone acts on the spur of the moment. It is a gradual conversation. Invite her over, fake a reconciliation, talk to her under the cover of a normal get-together. Use her trustfulness, the very trait Mary has so often relied on. The most disturbing thing about this preparation is its ordinariness. Four adults live with this plan for several days. They eat, they message, they go to the store, they answer everyday texts. And not one of them takes a step away. Not one calls the police. Not one warns Mary. Not one tries to stop the others. Inside this small group, its own logic forms. One in which a bruised ego turns out to matter more than anything else. Their preparation lands in a very particular moment. The end of March 2020 in the United States is the first, most unsettling week of the COVID lockdown. Schools are closing, offices are sending workers home, restaurants are taping short notes to their doors. Charlotte, normally lively and loud, shrinks down to apartments and the rare passerby. The streets of NoDa, where music used to play late into the night, now sit empty. Storefronts are dark. Parking lots hold a single car here and there. In the stairwells, there is an unfamiliar silence. Most neighbors stay inside and try not to step out unless they have to. The little habit of running into someone at the elevator, nodding hello, exchanging a quick line, almost disappears. Nobody comes by to visit. Nobody lingers at someone else's door. Any unfamiliar noise is chalked up to the background hum of the pandemic. Anxiety, frayed nerves, new routines. People are focused on their own fears and barely notice what is happening on the other side of the wall. Contact with loved ones moves abruptly into phones. Calls, video chats, endless texts become the only way to stay in touch. If a person drops off the radar for a couple of days, most chalk it up to fatigue, to not wanting to talk, to the general sense of disorientation. In an environment like that, alarm builds slowly. For anyone planning something secretive, this silence becomes the perfect cover. What in normal times would have caught the eye instantly? A visitor arriving, a strange noise, a change in routine, now passes almost unnoticed. The lockdown stops being just the backdrop of the era and becomes a shadow that is convenient to hide inside. Lavery and Pham live as if inside a cocoon. Their own apartment, their own territory, their own pair of extra people who are in on everything. There is essentially no outside oversight on their home, and it is in this strange frozen spring that they pick a date. It is Saturday, March 28th, 2020. By American standards, a strange Saturday with none of the usual weekend movement. On that day, Lavery reaches out to Mary. The tone of the conversation is carefully chosen. Her voice is calm, friendly, almost apologetic. Lavery says she wants to make peace, that they need to talk, that things have built up between them, and it is time to clear the air. Pham, according to investigators, knows about it and supports the plan. To Mary, these words sound like permission to exhale. For weeks she has been gnawed at by the feeling that she did something wrong, that her no spoiled the friendship, that her friends had pulled away. She wants the old lightness back. When Lavery suggests meeting at their place, in that same apartment in NoDa, Mary agrees without suspicion. To her it is a familiar place, somewhere she has been before, somewhere she has been treated as one of their own. The lockdown technically makes the trip a bit awkward, though not forbidden. Mary gets ready, checks her phone out of habit, exchanges short messages. She probably plans to call back later. She drives to the familiar entrance, walks inside, climbs the stairs. At the door, she still feels like a guest who is expected. Inside are Lavery, Pham, and what is supposedly a heart-to-heart waiting for her. What Mary does not expect is the number of people inside. In the apartment, she finds herself not alone with the couple, not as a third with a friend. Two more people are there, James Salerno and Sarah Deal. Their presence is presented as a coincidence, as a normal household setting, as background to a grown-up conversation. In the first few minutes, Mary may take it in stride. She may even feel more at ease with extra people around. At some point, her sense of the room shifts. The atmosphere tightens. The words stop sounding like reconciliation. And then it becomes obvious that she was not invited there to talk. What unfolds next inside the apartment is described in the charging documents in spare and chilling terms. According to prosecutors, 4 adults attack Mary, 4 adults in whose company she had felt like a guest only minutes earlier. Lavery, according to investigators, holds her down. Pham and Salerno act on her physically. Sarah Deal is present and, according to the prosecution, also takes part in what is happening. The odds against a young woman with fragile health are stacked from the start. In front of her are several adults, physically stronger, acting in concert. According to the prosecution, she was not allowed to leave and was deliberately left without help. The picture of what happened is reconstructed from evidence, from forensic exams, from witness statements. Each detail adds another layer to the same understanding. This is not an emotional flare-up. This is a deliberate, premeditated act. In one room, there are 4 adults and 1 victim. Not one of them walks out, calls anyone, brings help. The same choice is made 4 separate times in a row, not to stop. Each one of them has the chance to do it differently. None of them takes it. When it is over, a strange silence settles over the apartment. The music, the chatter, the everyday noises all fade out. What remains are 4 people and Mary, who only a short while earlier they themselves had invited over under the pretext of patching things up. They have no plan worked out in advance, no clear sense of what to do next. They are left alone with the reality they themselves created. And from this moment on, they have a new task: to hide what happened from the outside world and from their own fear. The cover-up begins right there in the apartment. According to investigators, the 4 of them act quickly and in coordination. They use what they find in the kitchen, ordinary household materials. Next, they need a place where nobody will notice anything. They pick one of the bedrooms and create a hiding place right inside the room, then put everything back where it was. From the outside, the bedroom still looks ordinary, with an ordinary bed in it. No items carried out, no suspicious bags on the staircase. From any angle, the room looks as if nothing in it has changed. A day later, the air inside the apartment changes. Lavery and Pham try to mask it with whatever is at hand. They reach for cosmetics and household products with sweet scents. The air in the apartment turns thick, chemical, with insistent sugary notes underneath. One of them goes to the kitchen, another lies on the couch, another talks to other people on the phone. Inside the home, a double reality takes shape. The visible one, where everything is as usual, and the hidden one, just behind the wall of the next room. They are counting on time, and this masking to give them a head start. How big a head start, none of them really knows. They just need to get through the next few days. The time after March 28th stretches on across two different worlds. In one, Mary simply stops responding. In the other, her mother is waiting for replies to her messages. The usual calls throughout the day do not happen. There are no short texts, no photos, no jokes about TV shows. At first, her mother tries to explain the silence with something mundane. The phone died, her daughter is tired, she went to sleep early. But after a day, after 2 days, the worry starts to take shape. Charlotte is still in the first wave of the lockdown. Plenty of people in those days are also dropping out of touch, working nights, sleeping during the day, losing their rhythm. That makes for a convenient explanation all around. The mother calls her daughter's friends, writes on messengers, tries to reach acquaintances. Information trickles in, drop by drop, and refuses to come together into a clear picture. Someone saw Mary a few days ago, someone has not seen her since the previous week. At the same time, life inside the NoDa apartment goes on as if nothing has happened. Lavery and Pham stay in the same apartment, sleep, eat, log into social media. Again and again they open the refrigerator, walk past the door to the next bedroom. According to available information, they keep talking to other people, answering messages, discussing everyday matters. On the surface, an ordinary couple during lockdown. Underneath, two people living right next to what they have done. The lockdown muffles every outside signal. Nobody knocks at their door. Nobody comes by to check on them. The neighbors take no interest in what is happening inside. 8 days go by, slowly, quietly, without incident. And that silence becomes the most disturbing part of the story. Not the night of March 28th itself, but the long, ordinary week that follows it. A week in which an entire system, civic, domestic, epidemic, seems to have turned its back on Mary. What breaks the gap in the system is not the state and not the police, but a single woman. On April 5th, 2020, 8 days after her daughter stopped answering, Mary's mother can no longer wait. She asks an acquaintance, a family friend, to drive to Charlotte and check what is happening inside the NoDa apartment. It is a deeply human gesture. For various reasons, she cannot make the trip herself, and staying in the dark any longer is no longer an option. The family friend arrives at the familiar entrance. Different versions of events have him entering the apartment, either because the door is open or because someone lets him in. Inside is an ordinary domestic setting that immediately feels off. The air still carries that insistent sweet chemical edge. He moves through the rooms, looks around, picks up on small details. And in one of the bedrooms, his attention catches and stops. What he finds in there changes everything in an instant. He realizes that this room contains traces that should not be in an ordinary apartment. He calls the police. Within a short time, patrol cars pull up to the entrance. A quiet residential building turns into the scene of a serious crime in moments. Neighbors who up to that point had paid no attention to anything now see the police tape, the officers in uniform, the specialists with their cases. The police begin examining the apartment. Forensic experts catalog the evidence, document the scene, photograph every room. It quickly becomes clear that what happened here was not a single act, but a long, multi-step concealment. Alongside that, the first conversations begin with the people inside the apartment. Lavery, Pham, and Salerno do not go anywhere. They meet the police at home. The 8-day void of silence comes to an end. After it, a very different chapter begins. Now, all of Charlotte will hear about Mary. Arrests come that same day. On April 5th, 2020, in that very apartment, the police take 3 people into custody. Kelly Lavery, Lavi Pham, and James Salerno are taken into custody. They are charged with serious offenses tied to a violent crime against Mary Collins, with kidnapping and concealment. Each of those charges in North Carolina carries a long sentence. Local news picks up the story instantly. Bulletins appear on screens, photos of the apartment from the street, neutral shots of the building's facade. Mary's name reaches thousands of people who had never heard of her before. Her own photographs spread across social media. A smiling young woman in cosplay, in school portraits, in casual snapshots with friends. The contrast hits the city especially hard. The gap between who Mary was and what was done to her becomes painfully obvious. But the police picture in those first days is still incomplete. There were 4 people in the apartment. By the time the police arrived, only 3 remained in Charlotte. The 4th, Sarah Deal, has by then already disappeared from North Carolina. According to available information, she packs up quickly and leaves the state, heading to Colorado. A search is launched for her, her photograph is sent to other states, the information is passed to colleagues in other agencies. Charlotte talks about the case in kitchens, in group chats, in the comments under news posts. People keep asking the same questions. How could 4 adults agree to do something like this together? How did a young woman with this kind of background end up in this group? Why was she found so late? And where is the 4th participant who, according to investigators, was also in the apartment? Those questions hang in the air. Some of the answers come a few weeks later. On June 2, 2020, almost 2 months after the apartment was discovered, Sarah Deal is taken into custody in Colorado. She is found and arrested by local police there. The information moves quickly back to North Carolina. The 4th defendant is no longer at large. After the necessary procedures, she is extradited back so that she can stand trial where the crime took place. From that point on, all 4 participants are in the hands of investigators. The North Carolina Prosecutor's Office has a complete set of defendants. That allows them to consolidate the materials, compare statements, build out a unified picture of what happened. Investigators work with the forensic findings from the scene, with the message exchanges, with information about people's movements. The case grows in volume, turning from a few short reports into thick binders. Mary's family lives through these months in a kind of suspended time. On one hand, there is relief that none of the participants slipped through. On the other, ahead of them stretches a long road through the courts, in which every hearing will pull them back to the events of late March. Mary's mother becomes the main public face on the family's side. She speaks out, gives short statements, thanks those who helped make sure her daughter was not forgotten. The city is waiting for answers to simple human questions, not legal ones, but ordinary ones. Why? Why like this? Why 4 of them? Why did they hide it for so long and try so clumsily to disguise the traces? For the people closest to Mary, those questions will never be fully answered, but the court needs something else. It needs to prove every charge against every defendant within the strict bounds of due process. And here a different kind of slowness takes over, not the slowness of the lockdown hallways, but the slowness that comes with a large court system in the COVID era. Hearings get postponed, deadlines slip, cases are split into separate proceedings. The people closest to Mary do not yet know how long this stage will turn out to be. It stretches out for years. The first real movement in the case does not come until 2022. Kelly Lavery, whom investigators consider the central figure in what happened, takes a deal with the prosecution. It is a plea agreement under which she admits guilt on several counts in exchange for certain conditions on her sentence. For prosecutors, it means a guaranteed conviction without a long trial. For Lavery, it is an attempt to avoid the worst possible outcome. As part of the deal, she pleads guilty to several serious charges. According to court documents, those include a second-degree violent offense against a person, first-degree kidnapping, and concealment of a body. Each of those charges in North Carolina carries a long sentence. As a result of the hearings, Lavery receives no less than 25 years of imprisonment, which means that for the foreseeable future, she will not be walking free. The cases of the other 3 defendants are moving nowhere near as quickly. Lavi Pham, James Salerno, and Sarah Deal remain inside the system, but their proceedings keep getting delayed for various reasons. Issues with forensic evidence, amendments to the charges, postponed hearings, disputes between the defense and the prosecution, the general overload of courts in the post-COVID era. As of 2025, out of the entire group, only Lavery has received a full sentence. The others are either still waiting for their proceedings or are under various forms of pre-trial release with shifting conditions. For Mary's family, this becomes a separate kind of pain. Her mother continues to follow every hearing, shows up in the courtroom, repeats the same simple demand to journalists, that all 4 be held fully accountable. She is not asking for revenge, not asking for any special wording. She is asking for a clear, formally documented answer to the question of who is responsible for what. That answer is still only coming in pieces. A case that began with a loud arrest has turned into a long courtroom story without a visible ending. The memory of Mary lives on in parallel. Her death remains one of the heaviest topics in Charlotte from these recent years. From time to time, small remembrance gatherings are held in the city and on social media. Friends and even casual acquaintances share her photographs. Mary in cosplay as her favorite characters. Mary in everyday clothes, Mary with her dog, Mary at her school graduation. Each photo is a different role, a different look, a different angle. The most constant figure remains her mother. She continues pushing for the trials of every participant to be carried through to the end. She gives interviews, supports any public discussion, shows up wherever she can. For her, the case will not be closed until each of the four receives their sentence and names everything that happened in their own words. The main question, why, never gets a clear human answer. On paper, everything is laid out in counts of the indictment. But behind those counts is a story that does not fit any normal logic. A petty grievance, a refused proposition, a group dynamic in which nobody took a step back. A lockdown, silence in the stairwells, 8 days without a sign of life. None of those factors on its own explains a thing. Together, they make up the backdrop on which something happened that should never have happened at all. The Mary Collins case teaches simple things that are worth saying out loud. Consent is a right, and a refusal is not grounds for retaliation. The greatest danger often does not come from a stranger in an alley, but from the inner circle, from people who used to be trusted. And a system in which a person can lie unnoticed for a week inside an ordinary apartment in an ordinary building is a system that needs rethinking, not on paper, but in the everyday readiness to notice the ones who have stopped answering their messages.